Hello and welcome to my very first stream on Khan Academy, essentially as a video game almost. I will be doing a completion run of Khan Academy Math starting at kindergarten and going all the way up. Welcome Getty, welcome Laser Drive, welcome Cheesy Pizza. If folks have questions, you are absolutely welcome to put them in the chat as I go, and I will make sure to answer them as best I can. Also, I mean, some of you have been my students before. Feel free to share your insights and your perspectives, and I'll be happy to highlight some of those comments. I want to talk really quick, and I actually have notes on this bit because there's a lot of stuff I don't want to forget. The big thing about this stream is it's going to be about Khan Academy, but it's also going to be about Common Core Math and why I believe that Common Core Math is the best thing to happen to math education in my lifetime. And it's not close. And I'm going to stand by that statement, and we're going to talk about why. And the first thing I want to talk about is where Common Core done messed up. And that is mostly in providing good information for parents and early on even for teachers to be able to figure out exactly what Common Core is and what is actually expected from a kid at any various grade level. That feels very, very opaque. There's a lot of good information out there, but you have to go and hunt it down. And I think that there should be a place that you can go to understand what the Common Core standards are, why they exist, and how you can use them to help your own learning as well as the learning of your child or your student or your younger sibling or perhaps your kid who you are homeschooling. So that's sort of my idea, is once Common Core is sort of demystified and folks see the behind the curtain, most folks actually agree with what Common Core is and what it means and what it stands for. They just don't recognize that because they only know what Common Core is through Facebook memes. And yes, I will do an entire teacher reacts to Common Core math memes thing at some point. I will start every single one of my streams first off just like this, with a little bit of a welcome and a hello to the folks who are in chat. Then I will actually go onto the Common Core website and I will talk about what the expectations are at the grade level that we are on. In this case, it's just kindergarten, so hopefully the math here should not be terribly intimidating. To those of you who are watching live on Twitch, as I said before, I do very much encourage you to share your perspective, ask your questions. I am looking at chat, and I will answer questions. I only ask, of course, that you remain respectful and that you remain curious. Those are the two big things. So with that in mind, let's start from the beginning then. So kindergarten. In kindergarten, math is a game. Let's be real. It's all about just sort of counting and figuring out shapes, and that's basically it. So I'm going to say a lot of words about that, but that's basically the general idea. In kindergarten, instructional time should focus on two critical areas: representing and comparing whole numbers, initially with sets of objects, right? Which object set has more things in it. And secondly, to describing shapes and space. Which object is bigger, which object is smaller, this is a circle, this is a rectangle, that sort of thing. So for the first part, students use numbers, including written numerals, to represent qualities and solve quantitative problems. That's a lot of big words to just mean they're just going to use some numbers to solve some problems, okay? Such as counting objects in a set, counting out a given number of objects, comparing sets or numerals, and remodeling simple joining and separating situations with sets of objects, or eventually with equations such as 5 plus 2 equals 7 and 7 minus 2 equals 5. Okay? So it says here in the parenthetical that kindergarten students should see addition and subtraction equations. So by the time you end kindergarten, you should know what 5 plus 2 equals 7 means, but it's not necessary for you to actually be able to write out that equation yourself. Now, I do always recommend when you are mentoring a student, whether that is a small child or any sort of student, I recommend when a student is interested in a topic, allowing them to flex forward past their grade level. It would really, really help them to establish both their confidence and their curiosity. Okay. Students choose, combine, and apply effective strategies for answering quantitative questions, including quickly recognizing the cardinalities. That word just means how many things are there. Okay? This is mathy language because this website is intended for math educators who know what all these words mean, which of course is why I'm breaking it down here. So the cardinalities of small sets of objects, counting and producing sets of given sizes. Hey, can you hand me 3 grapes, please? That sort of thing. Counting the number of objects in combined sets, and counting the number of objects that remain in a set after some are taken away. So we get a little bit of addition and subtraction, yes. Okay, so continuing on. And then of course, the second thing is all about shapes, right? So a little bit of numbers, a little bit of shapes. Students describe their physical world using geometric ideas, shape, orientation, spatial relations, above, below, next to, those sorts of things. They should be learning about those sorts of words in English as well, so there's a lot of overlap there. They identify, name, and describe basic two-dimensional shapes such as squares, triangles, circles, rectangles, and hexagons, presented in a variety of ways. So like a rectangle is still a rectangle even when it's tilted. But this is not like with my high school students where I am really, really strict about what is and is not a rectangle. Like this card is technically not a rectangle because it has a curved edge, like a rounded edge, right? But I'm not going to be that technical with a kindergartner. As well as three-dimensional shapes such as cubes, cones, cylinders, and spheres. I wouldn't recommend, or I wouldn't necessarily expect them to memorize all of the words for all of the shapes. But that's kind of the general bit, or the general gist. They use basic shapes and spatial reasoning to model objects in their environment and to construct more complex shapes. That's art. Like, this is literally telling you to do some drawings or maybe make some things with blocks. Show how shapes can be put together and taken apart to make other shapes. Okay? So that's it. We're going to scroll down a little bit and we're going to see the overview. So this is just a compressed version of what we just saw, okay? Counting and cardinality, knowing the number names and the count sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have to learn it at some point. This is that point. Count to tell the number of objects, and then comparing numbers. LaserDrive says I should add a tag for 100% completion, which you're absolutely right. I will do that next week. This is not a speed run, or else I would be done with kindergarten already, but I should add the 100% completion tag. You're absolutely right. And then compare numbers. Which number is bigger? Which number is smaller? We're not using the alligator yet. Not in kindergarten. But the idea of the word greater than, less than, bigger than, smaller than, those are important. Understand what addition is as putting together and subtraction as taking away from. Later on in high school, I will say that addition and subtraction are not two different things, that it's addition, that the subtraction is actually addition with opposite numbers, right? Negative numbers. 5 minus 2 is the same thing as 5 plus negative 2. But again, this is not the time for that. For now, addition means putting things together. Subtraction means taking things apart. You don't want to get too technical at too early of an age. And then, of course, working with numbers 11 through 19, just to get an idea of place value. This is the very first time they will see a 1 that actually means 10, right? The 1 at the beginning of 11 actually means 10, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Describe and measure or compare measurable attributes like height and width, which one is bigger, etc. Classify objects and count the number of objects in each category. Apples and oranges, if I've got a big basket of both, can you just pick out the apples and count them? And then, of course, identifying and describing shapes, analyze, comparing, creating, and composing shapes. And then finally, and these are important, so I'm going to zoom in even further. These are, can you see those? Can you read them all? Excellent. These are the 8 mathematical practices that drive all of Common Core math from beginning to end, from kindergarten through college. These 8 sort of practices are the whole point. These are it. Everything we do in math should be, in one way or another, driving towards one or more of these things right here. Okay? So I'm going to read through them very quickly, and hopefully you'll agree why they're important, even though we won't be focusing on all of them right now, right? Because, kindergartners. But first off, make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. I hope that makes sense. If you want to solve a problem, you first need to be able to understand the problem. And then when you inevitably run into barriers, like I've run into many barriers getting this very stream going, I had so much difficulty with my green screen and some other stuff. Persevering in solving those problems is something that we really highlight in Common Core math. Reason abstractly and quantitatively. That really, in this case, just means knowing what the numbers are and knowing which one's bigger and smaller than the others. Construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. That is, for number 3, it's really important, even as a little kid. It's not going to be a big thing, really. Like, obviously, we're not going to expect our 5-year-olds to be lawyers. But if I say that this deck of cards is a circle, like, I would expect a little kid to go, no, that's not a circle, that's a rectangle. And that's exactly the kind of thing that you should be doing with little kids. Getty asks me if I've ever had difficulties with math in school. And the answer is yes, absolutely. Throughout middle school and high school, actually, I got mostly C's in math. It wasn't until calculus in senior year of high school that I got my first A in math, which incidentally is also when I started deciding that I wanted to be a teacher. The next one is model with mathematics. Very important to be able to take mathematics and apply it to the real world. Use it to make predictions, use it to describe things that are happening in the real world. Again, in this case right now, it's just knowing how to find 3 grapes and bring them back. It's really that easy. And then the rest of these are mostly just for later. It's the first 4 practices that we're really focusing on right now. The 5th one, use appropriate tools strategically. Well, we don't really have a whole lot of mathematical tools yet. We are just starting out. Our toolbox is empty. Once we get more tools in our toolbox, then we'll learn how to use them in a way that makes sense and allows us to solve problems quickly and easily. But the rest of this I will talk a little bit more about in future streams. For now, as you can see, I am here at khanacademy.org. And I have made a brand new account, which is completely clean. And I am going to run up to, as I said, 100% here in Khan Academy. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by going into courses, because I want to show you how to navigate Khan Academy. There are a lot of ways that you can interact with Khan Academy, and it will help you in a lot of different ways. This is just the way that I interact with it, okay? Now you'll notice that there are all of these up to 8th grade and then high school and college level math topics here. If I click on up to 1st grade though, it'll take me to this Khan Kids app, which I've never used. I hear good things, but that's not what we're here to do right now. So I'm gonna back out of that. And instead, I'm just gonna go into See All Math. And early math is just a combination of kindergarten and 1st grade. So we're going to click on kindergarten and we're going to get started. Now, when I go through these problems, you will see 2 main columns of information here. All right, well, 3, I guess, if you include the one all the way on the far left, which keeps track of where we are and how much progress we've made. In the center, these links with triangles are links to videos that can help in these topics. And though I will not be watching these videos on this stream, I do strongly recommend them. So I will pick one up, and I've muted it, but it's basically just doing a few example problems and walking you through it. Again, not necessarily for your child to watch this, but for you to watch it and understand what's expected. What I will be doing, though, is going through these practice problems on the right column here, which are right over my head, starting with count with small numbers.